CyberHub bunker and studio. You're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Good morning, security gang. Welcome to another episode of the CyberHub Podcast. It's great to be with all of y'all today. Thanks so much for tuning in. Wednesday, June 19th, 2024. Today's show is brought to you by our amazing friends over at Nudge Security. So if you haven't yet checked out your entire SaaS infrastructure and you don't know where everyone's opening accounts, all of your shadow SaaS accounts, you're going to have to give Nudge Security a try. You'll hear more from them later on in the show, but we've got a packed show for all of y'all today. A lot going on, so let's go ahead and not waste a lot of time talking this morning about everything else and focus on the cybersecurity news you tuned in for. So, importantly, please subscribe, follow, share, comment. Again, over the last several weeks, our viewers and our listeners, you've been active and you've been sending us stories. And today, again, several stories, thanks to you bringing them to our attention. So again, grateful to our amazing audience members. So please make sure to subscribe, follow, share. Really, really grateful for all of that. Now, without further ado, join me for a traditional CyberHub Podcast coffee cup cheers. I've got my double espresso in my CyberHub Podcast travel espresso mug. Where else could you get something so amazing? If you go subscribe to our Substack. Coffee cup cheers, y'all. The thing, I'll explain later. Let's go ahead and get started here with AMD launching an investigation after Intel broker announced this week on breach forums that they have and are selling sensitive data belonging to the company. The data offered for sale includes information allegedly of future AMD products, customer and employee databases, data sheets, source code, property files, firmware, and financial documents. The employee database allegedly includes information like name, job role, phone number, and email address. Intel brokers made public several screenshots in an attempt to demonstrate the claims. The compromised files were allegedly obtained in June of 2024. AMD spokesperson has said that they're aware of a cybercriminal organization claiming to be in possession of stolen AMD data. They're working with law enforcement and third-party hosting partner to investigate the claim and the significance of the data they claim to have. AMD will keep everyone appraised as to that. Intel broker, obviously, really kind of the household name for many cybersecurity practitioners today in the dark web, as some people are finding out through Intel broker that they've been breached, like Acuity, Zscaler, and Europol, to name all of those. We'll keep appraised of this situation, keep you all updated as it becomes available. Amtrak is disclosing a data breach that's affecting train travelers' guest rewards account. In a breach filed with the state of Massachusetts, the National Passenger Rail Service noted that an unknown third party gained unauthorized access to user accounts between May 15th and 18th of this year. They've determined that the compromised usernames and passwords from prior breaches were likely used to access certain accounts, and stressed that there was no in the breach notice that there was no hack of the Amtrak systems, but rather potentially they hacked customer information through leaked username and passwords, people reusing passwords. And that's kind of the theme of this one, right? People reusing passwords. How often do our employees, do our customers reuse passwords? What's the responsibility here, right? This has got also a theme with a few other stories today is, yes, is Amtrak taking a hit on this? I'm not really sure if they should. I don't know that this is Amtrak's fault. And what's the responsibility of who owns password, reusability? So, we'll see that. It's again, one of those where you go like, the reality is, there's that. I mean, obviously there's impact to customers potentially with their reward points and whatnot, but and that'll have some financial impact. But if your customers are reusing passwords, I mean, it seems like that's what happened at Snowflake. It seemed like that's kind of like a theme of several of the big breaches. Just put a big name, get the clickbait, get us practitioners looking at it, and then at the end of the day, it's people potentially having their username and password used by threat actors. And if you're not monitoring passwords per an account, credential stuff, and account and account activity, and you haven't established a baseline, it's significant. So meaning if you're a CISO, you're a security practitioner, and you have customers that log into your accounts, you should have a baseline, kind of a per day of the week, per hour. All right, what's normal activity? And then what's peak activity and what's abnormal activity? And then if all of a sudden you see a whole bunch of abnormal activity at like 6 a.m., that should be a red flag to check something typically. So just kind of an idea there. Maxicare, one of the leading health maintenance organizations, is reporting a security incident that involved the unauthorized access to PII. The breach affected approximately 13,000 members of the company, accounting less than 1% of the total member population. The compromise pertains to booking requests made through a lab at home, a third-party home care provider. Maxicare assures its members that no sensitive medical information has been exposed. The breach didn't impact any sort of business operation, network, or customer data. Where the breach occurred operates on a separate database that's not integrated. This is likely a third-party breach that occurred there. There's that. And again, one thing about their notices, yes, they have the, we've got engaged in partnership with an industry-leading cybersecurity firm, and we're adhering to all of this stuff. But they're very precise, meaning they knew where their data was, they knew what was going on there, and they immediately addressed it. So, I'm going to give them credit where credit is due. The fact that this, the fact that they were able to, they had network segmentation, they knew what was there, makes this one response manageable, makes the information sharing with the patients and the customers and the shareholders and stakeholders and everyone else in the company really easy to do. And that, again, is the partnership between cybersecurity, technology, and so forth that's really critical for an organization. Panera Bread likely paid a ransomware earlier this year as part of the attack that really kind of disrupted the company for a week or more. Bleepy Computer has learned that one of their storage servers was not encrypted in the attack, which allowed the company to rebuild and restore servers from backups. However, no ransomware gang ever claimed the attack or leaked any of the stolen data, might indicate that they have paid it. And here's the thing about this, y'all. If they did, that's a decision they have to make as a business. They may have said, whatever data you have, we're willing to pay it. Insurance is going to cover it. We don't want to deal with it. We know we can recover our environment. We did recover our environment, but we don't want this data out there. And that's a decision Panera Bread made. Is it the right or wrong decision? That's, again, unless you're the CEO of the business, unless you're the one sitting in the driver's seat and you control what's happening, it's very hard for everyone else to make those decisions, because Monday morning quarterbacking, breach response, and ransomware payments has become an art form in cybersecurity. LinkedIn, Twitter now X, and Reddit. I saw this story and I was kind of browsing last night looking at this, and I go, well, a lot of armchair quarterbacking of what could have, should have, would have. The fact is that when you're going through an incident, the business makes decisions based on what the business needs. And it could be that security said, don't pay the ransom, and they decided to do it anyways, irregardless to what it was. And so there's an aspect of breach response and that goes beyond just don't pay the attackers, don't pay the hackers, don't pay all of these people. There's an aspect that goes with the business, whether right or wrong. Don't Monday morning quarterback this situation. I mean, I know it's fun to talk about it and everyone kind of likes to have a good time about it. The fact is, though, there are factors that go beyond IT, that go beyond security, that go beyond recovery, that matter for these organizations, and it's decisions they make. And if the cost was minute in order not to release the data, then by all means, good for them. And that's a decision they had to make. The Australia Information Commissioner is detailing how the Medibank breach really took place, and he's detailing how misconfigurations and missed alert allowed for the breach in October of 2022 to take place. The company confirmed that the threat actors impacted 9.7 million people in Australia. The attack was ultimately linked to a Russian national who's been sanctioned. The commissioner alleges that from March of 2021 to October of 2022, Medibank seriously interfered with the privacy of 9.7 million Australians by failing to take reasonable steps to protect their personal information from misused and unauthorized access or disclosure, in breach of the Privacy Act of 1988. According to the report, the Medibank contractor, the IT service desk operator, using his personal browser profile on his work computer and saving his Medibank credentials in the browser. That's how it kind of all started. These credentials were synced to his home computer, which became infected with information stealing malware, allowing threat actors to steal all saved passwords in his browser on October 7th of 2022. These credentials provided access to both a standard and elevated access account at Medibank. During the relevant period, the admin account had most, if not all, of its systems, including network drives, management consoles, and remote desktop access to Jumpbox servers there as well. It's unclear if the attacker behind the breach purchased the stolen credentials from an online dark web marketplace or conducted an information stealing malware on that. I'm going to say it's probably the first. And I'll tell you why. Stolen credentials, reusing passwords, saving it to your browser. Come on. Password manager, folks. Password manager. However, the threat actor began using these credentials on August 12th to first breach the company's Exchange server, then later log into their Palo Alto global VPN implementation, providing internal access to the corporate network. The report states that Medibank failed to protect users' data as it had not enforced MFA on VPN credentials, allowed anyone with access to the credentials to log into the device. That is hashtag true, and that is a fact. How? You don't have that. How? Palo Alto doesn't require that. I think they require it now, but back then they did not. The data included customer information like names, date of birth, addresses, phone numbers, email addresses, Medicare numbers, passport numbers, health-related information, claim data, and so much more. So there's that. So, scathing report. I don't know if it's scathing, but kind of shows you how most breaches are a result of not doing the basics. All right, let's speed through the rest of our news here. I want to try and get y'all on time today. So, a ransomware attack and extortion payments are hitting a 5-year high in manufacturing and production organizations, according to a new report from Sophos. 2/3 of manufacturing and production organizations experienced a ransomware attack last year. Of those, more than 3 in 5 victims, organizations reported paying the ransom in order to recover. While most ransomware attacks are opportunistic, attacks against manufacturing organizations encounter less resistance. Simply one, because if you disrupt their manufacturing business, they want to pay the ransom and get back online that fast, right? Clorox is a prime example of that. They paid $49 million in costs from the cyber attack, and recovery efforts still remain ongoing. That's just one example in the extreme end of it. The average ransom payment in the manufacturing sector increased by 88% to almost $2.4 million last year. Manufacturing organization incurred other financial impacts from ransomware attacks. They reported a recovery cost of almost $1.7 million, a 55% increase. So you kind of see that report and understand where it is going. The FTC is now filing a complaint against TikTok for data privacy practices. The FTC referred the complaint to the DOJ on Tuesday, saying in a statement the agency has uncovered reasons to believe that named defendants are violating or about to violate the law, and that a proceeding is in the public interest. Again, the war on TikTok continues. I'm not a TikTok fan. I don't even have a TikTok account for the podcast itself, so I'm not going to sit out here and defend TikTok. I'm just saying, when the government decides to go after you, they power everything they've got. The law of selling TikTok from ByteDance, that's now in the Supreme Court as unconstitutional. The FTC, they're just overwhelming them here ahead of the election. So we'll see what all of this means. If you're wondering how much Burnout cost, a study done by Hack the Box says that on average, an American and British enterprise are throwing away as much as $756 million a year in productivity due to burnout to cybersecurity staff. This was curated by the sum of the first working out the average daily wage for cybersecurity professionals using the Info Security Institute figures. They then used stat revealing the average number of sick days taken per year per worker, which is only 3.4. The average number of days lost to poor productivity, 5.1. I'm going to guess it's a lot more than that. Assuming an 8-hour working day, which in the Western world, that's in cybersecurity, that's not common. Most people work a whole lot more than that. The figures were then extrapolated out according to the number of cybersecurity professionals in the US and the UK and the total number of days lost. In the UK, employees may be losing a combined of $130 million annually, while the US, it's much could be down to as much as $626 million due to lost productivity. An interesting thing to look at from Burnout and consider when looking at your employees. And finally, the Vermont bill that we thought yesterday might have had the veto overridden failed. And so the Vermont landmark privacy bill has been killed after the Senate was unable to override the veto with the requirement. It ended up going 15-4, which effectively killed the legislation. It passed in the State House of Representatives. However, it failed the Vermont Senate. And as such, that bill is now dead. And hopefully the federal bill starts to take a little bit better shape. So that's it for our show this morning. We'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, latest, greatest. Until then, stay tuned. Make sure y'all patch your environments. Again, cybersecurity is about the basics, proper implementation of MFA, patching, vulnerability management. Do those things. You really, really does help your posture. Most importantly, y'all, go check out Nudge Security for all the latest and greatest there as well. So thanks so much for tuning in, and stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.